Okay, it's working. Okay, so I've been gone from YouTube for a while. Like it's been like a year. Um, I felt the motivation to make a video. Anyway, so today I'm just going to be covering. There's going to be a series, but I'm just going to cover some of the very most basic parts of HTML and CSS. Um, I'm going to leave JavaScript for a later video. Uh, but basically, I'm just going to explain stuff real quick. HTML is basically so HTML, JavaScript, and CSS is what websites are mainly based off of, or built on. So the HTML, which is what this is it defines like the structures that you see on the website. Um, so it's kind of like I like to call it the skeletal system of the website. The CSS is kind of like it's like the skin. It determines what it looks like, and it's how they make it look nice. And the JavaScript is like the muscles. It makes it do things. So like if you click on a button or something, that'll be what it does. But we're going to cover this in one of the later videos. Anyway, so if we start with the HTML, the first thing is there's two things called head and body. And you'll see this is part of the body, this is part of the head. The way you start an HTML element is just with this, and you end it with a forward slash and then head, or not head, but a forward slash and then whatever the element is. So the head is for setting up files and so forth, and how your website will work, and the body is for the pieces of the site that you'll actually see. So let's just make our first tag. Um, so go ahead and write div and then slash and div, and these, and anything you write in here now becomes an element. So if I write just random text and then we open it and then we run it, then you'll see it printed out right here. And so it just shows up in the top right by default. Now, if we can give this an ID, let's just call this txt for text. And then let's go ahead and make another thing called h1. That's a heading. So if we run this, you'll see the heading is big, this is small. If we go over to the CSS page, the first thing we want to do is, let's say we want all of our headings to look one way. So then you can write h1 and then a pair of brackets, and everything in these brackets will apply to anything that's a heading. So if I make another heading, it will look like this. So if I say color, and so this is in REPL.it, so you can just select blue as your color, and then use a semicolon to end the statement. If you want to, there we go. There's also a color editor on here, so you can set the color to whatever you want. And another thing you can do is text align. This basically puts it left, right, center. So if we want all of our headings to be center aligned, we do that. So if we run that, you'll see now it's blue-ish and it's in the center. Now let's say we want to just modify what this is like. You'll see that we put div ID equals text. So this is how it's identified in the website. If we use the inspector, it will show up as that. So to modify an individual element, click pound, and then write the element's name, and then the brackets, and then same with the last one, we can do color, and then you'll see this individual element shows up as red. If I make another div, though, it will just show up as black. The final thing is that I'm going to do is just making a button. So first, let's just look at what a button looks like. And this is just what I type in here is just what the text is for what's going to be written on the button. So if I run this, we get a button right here. And so it doesn't do anything right now, but you can click it. Let's go ahead and name this button. So basically, there's a system called a class, and a class is basically a type. So a class is similar to calling this h1, but you can define what is a member of a class. So we can go ahead and call this button class equals. So you'll see that it's kind of like div ID, and you can also put button ID, but naming it a class allows you to add attributes to it. Equals button, and this is the name of the class, and then button. Oh, excuse me, I need to put quotes on this. Let's just name this button 1. Make sure there's 1 equals. And so now if we run this, looks the same. But then if we go over to the CSS, so with just a HTML type, we don't type anything. With a ID, we do pound. With a class, we do dot. And so if I write dot button, then we get then we get this. It's underlined because I haven't put anything in here. So we can put color. So padding is basically it's space around. It's space inside of the object around the text. So if we make this 15 pixels by 32 pixels, then you'll see the button is big and now it's white. So that just creates space around the text. It's basically just the size of it. The next thing we're going to add is font size and in pixels. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Just like if we name this 16 pixels, then you'll see. Hang on just a second. I'm going to change this to so that you can see the text. So now you'll see there's a lot of space around the text, and the font size is larger than before. All right, so then the margin is another thing. Instead of creating space inside the object, it creates it around. And so when you write the margin, the first number is the margin on the top. So the distance from here between this object and this object vertically. And then the next one is the right padding. So the distance from the object. If there's an object on the right, it'll move to the right. And then bottom, and then left. And so then you'll see if we run that, it's moved away from the edge, and that's the left padding. So you can just adjust as you want to move it around in the space. Then Final thing we're going to cover is cursor. Um, so the cursor, when you hover your mouse over an object, you can change what it is. So if we make it pointer, then you'll see when we run this, when I move my mouse over this, it becomes a clicking finger, and when I move it off, it's just a normal pointer. And you can set this to a bunch of other different cursor types, but the pointer is appropriate for a button. And then if you want to set the background color for an individual one, you can write dot button one, and then in these brackets, background, and then let's say you want the background to be purple for this specific button only. If you want it to be for every button, put it in the button class, but if you do that, then it makes the background purple. That's all I'm going to cover today. The next video will cover some more elements, how to make the button do something when you click it, and alerts. But that's all for this one, and I might see you in the next one if I pay attention to my notifications.